Bases dropped on a dreary, gloomy Wednesday morning in the metro Atlanta area, matching the dreary, gloomy, maybe disinterested, maybe overwhelmed, maybe lethargic. We can keep going through the thesaurus and probably still not find the words to accurately describe the United States men's national team last night losing 2-0 in Canada in the CONCACAF Nations League. There was a reason why we talked about the CONCACAF Nations League and talked about how it's important and how it matters. You get games like this. This was the first time that under Greg Berhalter, this national team has gone on the road in a game that mattered. And boy, did it look like it. They looked like they had never been in this kind of situation before against a team that, I'm sorry, and we'll get into it all morning long. You can talk about player pool, and you can talk about the U.S. doesn't have good enough players, and you can talk about the players are overrated, and you can talk all you want about that. On paper, outside of Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David, tell me which players in the Canadian team would be in the U.S. team. Tell me which of their defenders who threw a clean sheet would be ranking ahead of what the U.S. threw out up top. We're going to try really hard today to be real about these conversations. I'm not going to sit here and mix up 5 different things to not explain to you what I think happened. It's not about program. It's not about player development. It's not about the U.S. Soccer Development Academy. It's not about mentality overall. It's not about all of those things in a vacuum. It is about last night, you were the more talented team. You went into a game on the road, and you had nothing against a team that had not beaten you in 34 years. Nothing. And that's not okay. The other things aren't okay either. But this is the same thing that happened in the match with Trinidad. You want to bring up 20 different things that might play into it to a lesser degree. But the fact is, you took a team into Toronto last night that was better than the team you played, and you needed to get a result. Because when you're in a competition, you should be in a competition to win it. And anybody who tried to tell you that the CONCACAF Nations League didn't matter was fooling themselves. It does matter. This is a team that needs to win trophies. Flat out. This is a competition where there's a trophy on the line at the end of it. You want to be the best team in CONCACAF? You win trophies. I don't think anybody in Mexico said, well, we don't really care about this trophy. We're just going to show up. And, yeah, we do the same thing. We do the same thing for a friendly game that we do for these games. And I remember hearing that out of U.S. men's national team players about these 2 matches. And that's wrong. And that's a huge issue. That's part of the issue. But, yes, this game mattered. And you went in there with the better team, needing to get a result. That's all you needed. A result. Put on a performance and get a result. You didn't look anything close to getting a result. It could have been 4 or 5-0. You were played off the park by a team that is not better than you. And don't revise history. Don't inflate CVs for the Canadian national team. Their backline last night had a converted central midfielder in Richie Larea, who is becoming a good right back. He's got 16 starts at right back since moving to from the midfield. Kamal Miller on the other side, 14 professional starts. Derek Cornelius in the middle, 16 professional starts. Steven Vittoria, 32 years old. He's playing for the number 12 team in Portugal at the moment. Okay. He was in Philadelphia in 2015. Awful. Couldn't last. Awful. Didn't work. had to rebuild his career first in Poland and then in a mid-table Portuguese club. That's the back line that went up against a player in Christian Pulisic, who is at Chelsea, developed at Dortmund after developing in the United States, was sold for a boatload of money, who didn't have it last night. And there could have been flu-like symptoms, but didn't have it last night. Weston McKennie at Schalke. Didn't have it last night. Didn't. Josh Sargent, the next big thing. Werder Bremen. Didn't have it. Nothing. Jordan Morris, who's been there and done that, has got a ton more professional experience than these guys. Didn't have it. If you want to argue with me that Kamal Miller, Derek Cornelius, Steven Vittoria, Richie Larea are a more talented backline than the front four the U.S. put out in Sargent, Pulisic, McKennie, and Morris, you're not arguing in good faith. And that's the biggest problem here, in my opinion. You're not losing games like this to Mexico and you're having this feeling after it. Mexico's a better team than you. You should be losing to Mexico right now. Should you put on a better performance? Should you steal some wins? Should you steal some results? Yes, you should, because we've done that historically in U.S. soccer history. You're not right now. That's a different conversation. You've lost your last two big games on the road in competitive matches against two teams that you have no business losing to in these matches. 0. That Trinidad and Tobago team in 2017 wasn't even their top team. They were already eliminated, and they were playing some guys for experience. This Canada team is not better than this U.S. team. That's the problem. And you can get into a million other things, and we will, because they are part of the issues. But when you have the better team and you can't get the job done in games that you should be getting results in, the rest of it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter. And both games, to me, there are huge, massive tactical issues that had a hand in it. Bruce Arena went to Trinidad and Tobago with an arrogant mindset, playing the same team that had played a few days before, playing a diamond midfield, one holding midfielder, knowing that Trinidad's going to play direct, and you're looking for the second ball, and you're putting your midfield in a position where it's very difficult to win the second ball, and no tweaks. Last night, Canada comes out in a 4-4-2 diamond. They play Davies and David up top. They're overloading your three central midfielders where you're trying to build up possession. What's the response? Keep trying to build up possession through the overload. Keep trying to play through the press. How does it work? It doesn't. What do you try to do different? Nothing. First 15 minutes of the second half, 2 times. One, I believe it was Stefan who played over the top. Jordan Morris goes up, or Sargent flicks the ball on. Jordan Morris goes in and fights for it, wins it somehow, and you have the best chance you had all night. You had another one where you got Yedlin loose down the right. That's it. Never changed anything shape-wise until you brought on Zardes to go with 2 forwards in like the 73rd minute. When you have the better team and you're going into these games where you got to get a result and you're not just getting beat, you're getting beat tactically and you're getting outworked. Can't happen. And there's got to be questions as to why that is happening. Are there cultural elements to it? Matias Almeida thinks so. I think there's probably something to that. There's lots of things that go into it. That still doesn't make it okay. And you have to break it down into the individual chunks to actually create something that's going to change it. Because that's my number one issue with all of this. There were so many people going into the end of the 2017 cycle, going into 2018, after Klinsmann was fired, you started to hear this murmuring about, well, maybe it's a good thing if they don't qualify. Maybe that will bring about change. Maybe that's a good thing. No, it's an awful thing, and you're seeing it now because the whole thing is rotting. Because that's what happens when you don't qualify and you don't make the dramatic changes because you don't have the proper leadership to do so. That's what happens. Last night happens. You have a team that now has not qualified for a World Cup, missed 2 straight Olympics. You have a team that doesn't know how to play in meaningful matches. And it appears you have a technical staff that doesn't know how to manage in meaningful matches. And you get what happened last night. Look, this is where you're at right now. You have Canada coming to Orlando to play in November. Canada gets a draw. You're not going to the semifinals of the CONCACAF Nations League. And Canada is. That's a massive problem. Massive. Because yet again, it's another time that you're missing out on meaningful matches. Meaningful matches. This team doesn't know how to play in them right now. That is a huge issue. Huge issue. Are there bigger issues? Yes, and we're going to get to those in the next segment. We will. Because they are part of it. Part of it. But my question, as we wrap this tirade up, because that's what it's turned into, my question is, what were the resources like in the late 80s when the U.S. qualified for 1990? What were the resources like for the program going into 1994 when you didn't have a professional league for players to play in and you had to sign guys to contracts and keep them training in Mission Viejo and playing friendlies against whoever you could get because you didn't have a professional setup? What were the resources like going ahead into 2002 when you had your best ever World Cup and you reached the quarterfinal? What were your resources like then compared to now? So all of the things, which there are valid things that need to change about U.S. soccer. There are, 100%. In a vacuum, they do not tell you why the U.S. is losing to Trinidad, is losing to Canada in meaningful matches. And oh yeah, by the way, getting run off the park by Venezuela and Jamaica prior to the Gold Cup this summer. They don't tell you any of the things that have happened since year 1 or 2 of the Jurgen Klinsmann era. They don't tell you any of that. U.S. soccer is in a better place as a whole. U.S. soccer is an organization. U.S. soccer as a big thing. Take the organization out of it. American soccer is in a far better place than it was in any previous era, with resources, with everything for this group to get the job done, with a deeper player pool. Is the top as good as it was? It's debatable. But is it deeper? Do you have more options? Yes, you do. You obviously have more Americans playing professionally than you ever have. Is the United States player pool Brazil, Argentina, Spain, England, Germany? We can keep going and going. No, it's not. Is it Canada? No, it should be better. It is better. Is it better than Honduras, Jamaica, Guatemala? I think so. I think it's better than Costa Rica. I think Costa Rica has consistently punched above its weight. Consistently. The U.S. used to do that. They used to be pretty good at it. Now, they can't punch at their weight. And that's the problem. It's not that the U.S. is losing games to teams that it should be losing to. It's losing games to teams that it should not be losing to. And nothing has changed since Olympic failure, World Cup failure. Nothing has changed. And you take the results since June going into the Gold Cup through now, and you're talking about one of the worst 4-month periods that you've seen in U.S. soccer. Flat out. Flat out. Go back. Even some of the dark ages and even some of the times when you're trying to find anyone with a passport who can play for this team. Anything. Times when you didn't have kits. You were begging and borrowing. When you didn't have a league to play in. Go back to all of that and start comparing losing to Jamaica, losing to Venezuela, narrowly defeating Curacao. Then you lose to Mexico in the Gold Cup final. All right, you should. You didn't really look all that convincing in it, but yes, you should lose that game, okay. You lose to Mexico again in a friendly where you're played off the field. And you're trying to come up with things about how, well, it wasn't that bad, blah, blah, blah. No, you got run off the field. And then you go to Toronto and you lose. I mean, where's the progress? There's none. There's none. The individual issues last night are a massive problem. The lack of progress overall is a massive problem. There are things that have to change at the leadership level for these things to be addressed. There are so many different things. You have to separate them into different chapters to be able to actually break it down. Because if you just throw everything out there and you say, well, it's because the kids are playing Fortnite, or it's because the kids are playing other sports. Last time I checked, Canada has a few other sports that they play pretty seriously, and they won 2-0 last night. You know, just saying. Don't think it's that simple. None of it's that simple, because there's a lot of different things wrong. That's the problem. It's now because you've had failure after failure after failure, and you haven't addressed it properly, and you've had some progress in some areas, but that's not enough to make up for these failures that have created this situation where the United States is not a powerhouse in CONCACAF anymore. Canada was not scared of the United States coming into Toronto last night. Honduras, Costa Rica, Panama, Jamaica, Curacao, Haiti. I think I'll leave it there. I'm not going to put Guatemala, El Salvador quite into that group. That group of teams that the U.S. very recently struck fear into their hearts whenever that match would come up. Now, not so much. Not so much. And that's going to take time to rebuild. So we'll get into the specifics of the match. We'll get into the big picture issues, and they're right there too, and there's plenty of them to get to. But I want to try as much as possible, because we're all pissed off and we're all irritated and we're all angry about where this thing is. I want to try to be very clear in what things we are addressing, because when you just throw it all into a pot, you can't break it out and say, this needs to change, this needs to change, this needs to change, here's what you should do. It is just rabble, 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 yelling, yelling, yelling. And yeah, I get it. But now, at some point, things got to change. Or we're just going to keep repeating this, because right now, be honest with yourself, you're going to have to pick up some wins on the road in the Hex. You're going to have to. It's part of the gig. You want to qualify, you got to do something on the road. Where do you think they're going to come from? I don't see any. The last time the U.S. won on the road in a competitive match was September of 2016 against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Let that soak in for a minute, and then think about the upcoming Hex, and think about 2022. And now, after these results we've seen over the last 4 months, and especially the way it's slid backwards now, you have to legitimately consider that this team is not a lock to qualify for 2022. 2018 might not have been a blip after all. That's not okay. We'll try to talk about some of the reasons that maybe that's the case, some of the things that should change, some of the things that have to change if they are going to qualify for 2022. Because there's no guarantees anymore. Not after you lose to Canada for the first time in 34 years. Not after you have the lack of progress that we've seen. There's no guarantees that you're going to 2022. We'll talk about the reasons why that is. We'll talk about what happened last night after we take a quick break right after this. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Apolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Thanks for bearing with me as I had some things I needed to say. I really just wanted to kind of lay the groundwork for our discussion this morning because there's a lot to discuss, and I just wanted to give you my thoughts off the top of maybe where I think some of the discussion points should be rather than just a gumbo of anger that it's going to turn into, and that's okay. But there are, I think, some specifics you got to get to, both about last night's game and in the big picture. John, thanks for bearing with me. I've been
worries.
Holding that one in for a little while.
Nothing wrong with that. And I figure there's nothing wrong with a good gumbo, but at the same time, gumbo. You have to have the right ingredients to make the gumbo work. The roux has to be there. The meats have to be there. If you're looking at, the right kind of a bean, right? All these ingredients.
When the gumbo doesn't work, you have to know where it broke down in making it, not just, the gumbo's bad. Well, why is it bad?
It's like, was the expiration date on the can of red beans passed?
I hope not. That's bad. That's the.
Did you not follow the instructions in the recipe book from Martha Stewart when you were trying to make the good gumbo? So you have to look at the ingredients before you talk about why.
There's some different recipe books I'm going to be reading for gumbo.
Yeah,
I'm not trusting Martha on the gumbo. Sorry.
But I mean, hey, she spent some time. She spent some time at the Gray Bar Motel. She might have picked up some things.
That's true. She might have a new recipe book that has some good gumbo in it. It's possible.
But no, that's the thing, is that if you just sit there and look at a meal at a plate in front of you, and you sit there and you don't like the color and you don't like the taste, and you try to eat it anyway because your mom said that you had to clean your plate and you still don't like it, why was that? And so that's that. I'm perfectly fine with you getting revved up, and a lot of folks have been revved up really since last night about it. To give you a bit of a verbal break, at least from my perspective, and I'm going to do this without using colorful metaphors. I'll leave that to other folks. I didn't see the want to. The want to gene was not, dressed in a USA kit last night. when it came to trying to build something of an attack, you always saw distribution that went line. Zach Steffen on the ground, except for the instances that you mentioned in the first segment. There wasn't any skipping of lines. You saw Alphonso Davies and what he could do as a talent. The defense, and we can get into the goals and all that kind of stuff. It's first goal, you had a bad idea and then people not getting back and then too much space, allowing a pass to the back post, and there wasn't something that was marked. You had on the second goal, and I'm still wondering why they didn't go after Cavallini after he picked up the instantaneous yellow when he first showed up. But you had an opportunity to sit there and quell an attack. And just you're sitting there staring at the ball. Cavallini ends up with it, and it's 2-0, and you're really putting yourself in a hole. So for me, it was just a matter of they wanted it more on the emotional level, and it showed with their desire out there. I didn't see any fire, and when it came to the tactical adjustments, you wait until minute 73 to try to do something. You had Josh Sargent a couple of minutes earlier trying to go for the home run ball instead of just trying to settle it, turn, shoot, and put it in the back of the net. You had Christian Pulisic with his one-on-one chance, and I know that we can sit there and look at it slowed down. Personally, I think he should have put it in the back of the net. But looking at it in slow-mo, you're sitting there saying, okay, how much time does he have to sit there and get organized, put it down, and put it past Borjan? So for me, it was a night where you got shown up, and it gets into the larger problems and the system and all this other kind of stuff, capital T, capital S, and then the organizational system, capital O, capital S, trademark circle.
Throw the system in the trash, because that's not even the issue anymore either. Like, that's been so mutated, and we talked about the PR battle that I think Berhalter lost from day one with things like saying DeAndre Yedlin will never play right back. For me, he's a winger. Where did he play last night?
I believe it was right back, sir.
The whole thing about I want my right back to tuck in and do this and do that, and we haven't seen that in a while. So many things that were said that came off as very rigid early on. You're not doing it anymore. I mean, they're not playing that way anymore. Now, what are they playing like? I don't know. They're playing very vanilla, and it's, there's just not a whole lot happening here. So I don't even, the system part, that's not even the argument anymore. It's gotten worse than that, because you're not trying to stick them into a system, because your system had a right back doing a very specific thing, and you played the right back that you said would not play right back in the system. So you can't even use that one anymore.
You're just not beating teams that you should beat. Bottom line.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, 100%. Like, there's been a lot of talk, and this is one that drives me a little nuts, is, well, you play too many MLS players, or Berhalter, picked the wrong squad because he's got all these MLS guys. I'm going to go through the players from Canada last night
Please
real
do.
quick.
Yes.
Borjan, goalkeeper, Red Star Belgrade. Massive, huge club. We all know that. Massive. Backline, Derek Cornelius, Vancouver Whitecaps. I think they're in MLS. And Derek Cornelius has 16 pro starts under his belt in his rookie season. Okay. Kamal Miller, Orlando City, MLS, 22 years old. 14 professional starts in his career. Richie Larea, right back, 24 years old. More games in MLS than the others, but 16 starts at right back since becoming a right back, since his move to Toronto. Steven Vittoria, 13 caps, 32 years old, spent a season on loan with the Philadelphia Union, was bad. And he's with a bottom half team in Portugal. I don't think when you compare the CV, Red Star Belgrade and Moreirense compare to Chelsea, Schalke, and Werder Bremen. I don't think they compare.
No.
You move up the field. MLS is the huge issue, right? What was the midfield that dominated you last night? Dominated you last night. Samuel Piette, Montreal Impact. Jonathan Osorio, Toronto FC. Was going to be Mark Anthony Kaye. He got hurt, LAFC. Who replaced him? Liam Fraser, Toronto FC. Second cap, by the way. And Scott Arfield from Rangers in Scotland. Does Rangers compare to those German clubs? I'm sorry, Jarrett, they don't. They just don't. The Scottish League is not the same as some of the other clubs on American CVs. Alphonso Davies is with Bayern Munich. That's their superstar, and he played like a superstar last night, didn't he?
Yep.
Jonathan David at Ghent in Belgium. He is turning heads. Yes, Belgium it's a good club in a good league. It's not the Bundesliga. The whole thing about MLS, we just went through the Canadian team with 3 defensive starters from MLS, 3 midfielders from MLS, and Alphonso Davies, who 100% developed in MLS. That's not the issue. It's a red herring. You want to yell about MLS? Go yell about MLS somewhere else, because that's not the problem. You're getting beat by Canada with a bunch of MLS players. You got beat by Jamaica with a bunch of MLS and USL championship players.
Check.
It's not the issue. You have more talent. Tell me on paper how Miller, Victoria, Cornelius, and Larea is supposed to be the better group than the front 4 of Sargent, Pulisic, McKinney, and Morris. Explain that one to me.
I'll hang up and listen.
You can't. It's impossible to, because you're talking about different pedigrees. The whole thing about, well, the U.S. roster isn't that good. It's not that good. It's all overhyped. It's all blah, blah. Kamal Miller, Derek Cornelius, Richie Larea, Steven Vittoria. They were the better group on the field than Josh Sargent, who Werder Bremen has high hopes for. Weston McKennie, who's an important part at Schalke. Christian Pulisic, who was just sold for a boatload of money to Chelsea after a very good run at Borussia Dortmund. And Jordan Morris, who has more experience than anybody in this Canadian team in the back line. So, I'm just saying. What American players have won anything in Europe? What Canadian players have won anything in Europe? I don't remember Red Star Belgrade winning a whole bunch of stuff. Rangers. Come on. Come on with that nonsense. You've got more players in the U.S. team that have won things than you have in that Canadian team, and you got played off the park. 100%. So focus the anger on the real issues. John's right. This is a game where you're on the road. What do you have to do when you're on the road? You have to work. You got outworked. Flat out. You got outworked. You got outcoached, which is part of it. Because last time I checked, when you want to build up out of the back and build up especially through your central midfield, if the opponent plays a dime into midfield and makes it difficult for you to do so and presses high, you should probably stop doing that at some point in the match and come up with plan B. You didn't. You made it easy for John Herdman and easy for these Canadian players to fall back on what they could do and what they could control. Outwork you. They did. 100%. They were more up for it. All the things we can get into. They outplayed you. They outcoached you. That's a problem. It's not about the talent level between these two, because you cannot make the argument that the Canadian team had better resumes than the U.S. team. You cannot make the argument that the Canadian team, across the board, more talented than this U.S. team. That's not the case. It wasn't the case when Jamaica beat the U.S. It's not the case with this one. Is this a much better Canadian team than they've been in recent years? 100%. Are they a team on the rise? Yep. All those things are true. They should not have beaten the U.S. team in the manner that they did. And it's the manner that they did that's the biggest problem here. What else stood out to you, John?
Other than the lack of want to?
Yep.
I just... You sit there and you're like, the back line, it was across the board. You just sit there and you go, you're waiting for that moment where the guys just sit there and you're trying to figure it out. It's like, okay, we have to do this. Then we adjust. And that moment only comes in the 73rd. You waited entirely too long to do stuff like that. It was, you look at Tim Ream and Aaron Long. To me, Long was hot and cold. And when I'm sitting here saying hot and cold,
Long was the best of the group, sadly.
Yeah. And then on the Cavallini goal, you're sitting there going, he got caught looking. Bottom line, he got caught looking.
The game's over at that point. Didn't even matter. It's stupid, and it hurts you, and it affects things in the competition, which does matter. I'm going to keep saying that. The competition that you're in right now matters. This team does not have the level to say, CONCACAF Nations League doesn't matter. We shouldn't be doing this. We're better than this. Pfft. Come on. Yes, it matters. You need to learn how to win things. They forgot how to do that.
Yeah. Zach Steffen still worries me in net. And for me, you just sit there and it's almost like you're watching that car crash happen right in front of you. And you want to point and sit there and go, turn the steering wheel to avoid the wreck. And then it happens in slow motion right in front of you. This was, and I'm going to bite my tongue. It was profoundly disappointing because I keep coming back to the idea of all of the Herdman talk that we had coming into the match and how he's in Coach Speak Playbook 101 about getting the underdog fired up and all this kind of stuff. And bottom line was they wanted it more. They came after it. They showed you up on their pitch. And despite the fact that there were under 20,000 people there, they were fired up about it. And it was great to see that atmosphere for a program that looks like, with guys like David and Davies, that they're going to do some serious business if they keep doing what they're doing. So for me, if you're a fan of Team Canada, there's definite reason for optimism to continue to build on what you've seen. If you're a fan of the Stars and Stripes, you got problems. But for me, once again, focus on the recency. Don't sit there and have 9 other chapters of the book and blame that for the ending where the butler did it. Focus on the last chapter. Focus on the most recent activity to try to figure out where to go from here. And there's a lot that has to be figured out to figure out where to go from here.
There's a lot of issues. Lots and lots of issues. So from last night, these are the things that jumped out to me. That some of it we'll repeat ourselves just a little bit, but I want to take last night, put a wrap on it to a degree, put it to the side, and then talk the bigger issues in the next segment. They never bought into actually skipping the press and playing direct against that back line that had, caps coming in. Cornelius had 11. Vittoria had 13. Larea had 3. Kamal Miller had 3. I'm going to put them under pressure. And if I can't put them under pressure by building up play, I'm going to play direct and put them under pressure. You never did. You never did enough of that. It's just basics. Herdman kept it basic and played the greatest hits, and it worked. And he told you it was going to be a fight, and you didn't listen. Christian Pulisic was dominated by Richie Larea, flat out. Pulisic could not beat Richie Larea on the dribble. Weston McKennie didn't do anything after the first 15, 20 minutes. Josh Sargent didn't do much of anything. Those are 3 guys that you're looking to show up in a big way. The back line, Ream was your captain. He had the bad clearance that led to the opening goal. Alphonso Davies just roasted him on a regular basis. Yedlin falls asleep on the back post on the cross that led to Davies' goal. Lovitz was overmatched consistently. Bradley had a giveaway at the beginning of the sequence that led to Canada's first goal. Roldan struggled to just complete passes. I mean, it was the worst I've ever seen Christian Roldan play. You couldn't build up through the back or through the midfield, and you never came up with an alternative. Never. Berhalter said this after the game. It was never going to be easy to come in here and win the game. There was no way. When you look at their quality, I want to parse this through just a second. When you look at their quality, when you look at their team, when you look at where they are right now, it wasn't going to be an easy game, and we have to accept that. I think all of us have to accept that. 100%, yep, it wasn't going to be an easy game. You have to accept that. They're a better team than they used to be. Yep, absolutely true. There was no way it was that you were going to come in there easily and win the game. All right, fine. Not going to argue with you on that. People who were saying, the U.S. would come in and win by multiple goals, you were fooling yourselves. I think we tried to make it clear throughout last week and the beginning of this week that this was going to be a difficult game. Still a game the U.S. should win. And right now, that ain't what U.S. fans want to hear from the manager. That is the last thing they want to hear, that, it's going to be really difficult to go to Canada. No, you have to perform better, flat out. No, it's not going to be easy. Well, tough. Go deal with it. Go actually perform, because the problem last night comes down to a couple things. You got out-coached because you never made changes tactically, and your players didn't work hard enough for you to overcome that. So it's the double whammy, and when your players aren't working hard to overcome it, and your players have zero response to falling behind in a competitive match. This was not a friendly. This was not a game to just keep running your head into the wall without a helmet because you're bound and determined to build up out of the back. This was a game that mattered. This is a game where you got to do something. Nothing. Yes, it's difficult. Welcome to international soccer. Yes, it's hard to go on the road against teams. Welcome to CONCACAF. Are you going to keep complaining about it or saying, it was going to be difficult. We knew it was going to be difficult. Yeah, it was going to be difficult. Or are you actually going to do something to change it? Because there's been too many times that you have been out-coached, not made adjustments, and your players have not responded. There's something breaking down. I don't know if it is, look, there's just the coaching staff feels like there's no pressure about results. None of it matters right now. Doesn't care. All right, we're going to try to build our style. Well, you can do that in a club season with 34 games. You can't do that in a competition with 4. So no, that doesn't work. This is a huge issue, and I don't know what's going to change it. We'll get into some of the bigger picture issues, and they're right there too. We'll get into that after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire, and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, October 16th. Overreaction Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah. U.S. dominated by Canada last night, 2-0. Here's my notes that I took starting writing this morning and thinking about it last night about the big picture stuff, not the tactics, not the individual things from last night, but the big picture stuff that has to concern you. One, the fact that U.S. soccer and the national team has created an apathy within the fan base is a problem. If the team and the federation can't get you interested or riled up or emotionally reacting to things through positive things like winning stuff, well, then this is going to have to do it instead. Because if you don't care and if you don't pay attention to this, it's not going to change. So, yeah, we got to get riled up about it. I wish we didn't. We do. I thought that after the Gold Cup that the program had been reestablished as the number 2 team in CONCACAF. Well, that was fleeting. That's not the case anymore. I don't know who the number 2 team in CONCACAF is right now. The U.S. can't say that they are for sure. When it comes to the job that Greg Berhalter is doing, I feel like we've talked about this before, but it just has to be consistently brought up. Management at a national team level is a different job than managing a club. And when you hire someone with no experience managing a national team, they are going to try to learn on the job. Some people can bounce back and forth. Some people can do both. Generally, they are people who have gained a lot of experience in the industry. Greg Berhalter had about 5 seasons as a professional manager coming into this. No national team experience. He played. He didn't manage at a national team level. Bruce Arena said this. It's a great interview with Sam Stejskal at The Athletic. Bruce talked about what Berhalter is facing. He said, I don't think things are going great. This was before last night. I think there's an inexperienced staff, and it's going to take them a little bit of time to get more experience and understand the international game, understand the profile of a player who can contribute at that level. They're learning that. And then, how do you create a national team environment? I still think that they're not certain about that. They're coaching a national team like it's a club team. Yep. Bigger picture things. Because these things come up after failures like last night. Charlie Stilitano, who runs the International Champions Cup and is very well connected and is a host on SiriusXM FC on the football show. He said this morning that he passed CVs of managers who had expressed interest in the U.S. job to the U.S. Soccer Federation. Now, he doesn't have any influence. He made that clear. He said, hey, I've talked to so-and-so, and they are interested in the job that is open. Here's their information. That's what happened. All right. He also made it clear, and I completely agree with him, that the U.S. national team job is a high-profile job. It is a job that many people would like to have. Stilitano said this morning that some of those managers reached back out to him to say that they'd never heard from U.S. Soccer. Others heard from U.S. Soccer that they had already made their decision. And I don't know the names, I don't know the time frames, I don't know any of that. You take that, you combine it with an interview from Des McAlninen, who was a goalkeeper coach with the U20s, worked a lot with Tab Ramos. He's bounced around, he's been all over the world coaching. He said this, I owe enormous gratitude to Tab Ramos, and he should have got the senior job. He had 4 successive World Cup qualifications. We went to the quarterfinals of 2 of them. It was a fit-up. The guy who runs U.S. Soccer, and in parentheses, Jay Berhalter, this is from an article in Ireland where Des is from. He said, the guy who runs U.S. Soccer, parentheses, Jay Berhalter, who is really in charge and who pulls the strings, his brother, parentheses, Greg, became the coach. They never conducted a search. They just said they did. Okay. Combine that with what Stilitano said and what we know here in Atlanta. Tata Martino made it abundantly clear that he was not contacted by U.S. Soccer after he said he was not going to take a new contract with Atlanta United. Also, Taylor Twellman on broadcast late last season said that in conversations with Tata Martino ahead of those broadcasts that he was interested in the U.S. job.
Absolutamente.
This takes you back to what was the coaching search? Was it a search? Who were the candidates? Did interviews happen? Was there actually a process, or did we just wait for as long as we did? And there are reasons why it took that long. I understand, and some of them make a lot of sense. But was there actually a process? It doesn't sound like it from multiple different people who are completely and utterly disconnected. That has to make you wonder. I'm sorry about this whole talent pool thing, and I get people tweeting at me last night and this morning about, well, he's calling in too many MLS players. He's not calling in other players he should be. There has been progress on player development. If you say that there hasn't been, I'm sorry, you've got an agenda. And that's what happened a lot last night. It's everybody falls to their agenda that it's player development stupid. It's all because of pay to play. It's all because of no pro rel. It's all because of X, Y, Z that you are always caping for. No, you got beat last night by a team that you shouldn't have lost to because you had bad tactics and you got outworked. Big picture, why are you in the situation you're in? A lot of reasons. And that's what we're getting into now. The player pool, yeah, you want it to be better. You always want it to be better. Brazil wants their player pool to be better, and they've got the best player pool anywhere. Germany consistently works to improve their player pool. You have to. That doesn't change overnight, first off. There's progress there. You have a deeper player pool than you've ever had. You have more American professional players than you've ever had. You have better American professional players than you've ever had. The level of talent outranks the level of results, and it has since the 2014 World Cup, since before the 2014 World Cup. The talent level passed the results level a long time ago. I'm over the whole nonsense that, well, the Nations League's not that big of a deal. No, it's a competition. You got to go win it. You have to have a winning mentality. This team used to fight scratch and claw to win the U.S. Cup, a tournament they made up. But those games mattered because they had to win it because they had to prove themselves. Well, you have to prove yourself right now. And all you've proven is that you're not good enough to be the second best team in CONCACAF. You might want to change that. There's no excuse for the lack of intensity on the field. There's none. The only thing that is very concerning about that at this point, has Berhalter lost the team? I don't know. Not in the locker room. I couldn't tell you. I think it's an easy thing for people to throw out there, and really very few people know. But man, Paul Kennedy had a really good point from Soccer America. The USA's performance was the worst in a competitive match since the 4-0 loss to Costa Rica in November of 2016. That's the one that cost Jurgen Klinsmann his job because it looked like the team quit on him. This was the worst one since that because it looked like the team was not working hard enough. That's a problem. It's a problem. I mean, I can't think of many matches where the U.S. looked that bad since I started watching this team in the late 80s. Steve Zakawani had a really good tweet as well, and this goes back to issues with Berhalter because this is a very specific one about how to manage a group and manage a player like Christian Pulisic. Steve Zakawani said, no one, except maybe Landon, can relate to the pressure Pulisic is under to carry the national team forward. At a time when his confidence is already low due to the situation at Chelsea, being subbed in the 60th minute won't help. Can even feel like he was singled out. Yep. So now you have been outmanaged. Your team is not working hard enough for you. And now you have created an issue with your best player.
Stacking up, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we should probably get into this before Mike Conti joins us in the next segment. Darren Eales made some points very clear yesterday about the Miles Robinson injury. He didn't hold back.
Nor should he.
It's not a club team where you are focused on fitness after a match like that. Miles Robinson has had no fitness issues all season long. He's played more minutes than most every player in the league, I think bar 5. He's pretty fit. Do you really need to have an intense workout at 11 o'clock at night after he sat on the bench and didn't play in a game? Was he going to play in Canada? I don't think he was. I'm just judging. I don't know. Maybe he was going to play instead of Ream or Long, but I don't think so. I think it's kind of obvious where Robinson is on the pecking order right now at the national team. He's not above those two. So why did you have him do that when you're not going to play him in the next game and he's going to go back to his club to play in a playoff game? So now you have issues with your best player. You've created an issue with a big club because a player's been injured on your watch. You have been outmanaged in games fairly consistently. Tactically, you look inept at times. I'd say in most times against better competition. And your team is not playing like its hair is on fire to try to make up for all of these things. I don't know. Add that up and tell me what you get, because I don't like what the equation's looking like right now. It's kind of scary. Yep. We're going to take a break. We'll get Mike Conti on the line, get Mike's reaction to last night and where things stand for Atlanta United with the Miles Robinson injury, and it, not looking great, at least for this weekend, and maybe more. See what Mike thinks about all of it right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. Soccer Down here, October 16th. It's an Overreaction Wednesday. Maybe didn't expect this kind of reaction on a Wednesday, but that's what happens when you get played off the pitch, worked off the pitch, and out-managed in Toronto, and Canada beats you 2-0 for the first time in 34 years. Welcome into the party, Mike.
Time to start taking people's jobs, to use a South Park term. It's time to take their jobs. I cannot think of a single positive thing to say about this joke of a U.S. men's national team program right now, and it goes beyond last night. It's a total shambles of a national team. It is a complete embarrassment to this footballing nation, and it's time to start taking people's jobs, because you've got a manager who's in way over his head. And you've got players who seem to not be very passionate about doing anything for the shirt right now. And when you have that as a combination, you're not going to get out of the hex. And the impact of missing a second World Cup, and I know we're still 3 years away from having to worry about that, would be devastating. But this national team right now is on the fast track to not going to Qatar unless some changes are made. And I think you are still early enough in this cycle where you can make the change, because Berhalter ain't it. He is not it. You are still early enough where you can make the change and hope that you can get this thing turned around. The players need to be held accountable too, absolutely. But for me, it starts with a manager who has no clue what he's doing, and not only has embarrassed the U.S. men's national team, but may have also played Atlanta United out of the MLS Cup playoffs because of what he did to their best player. It's a disgrace. It's a mess. And it's no wonder why we can't make a World Cup, because no one knows what the heck they're doing right now.
Mike, you mentioned the solution about Berhalter out, and that's been a lot of folks have done hashtag fire Greg Berhalter out on our timeline this morning. But when your brother is a prospective roadblock in having that happen, how realistic, honestly, is that idea right now?
Well, if Josh Berhalter wants to die on that hill, I guess let him. Yeah, I guess that would be a concern. I would imagine, I would hope that maybe Greg Berhalter would do the honorable thing and step down, so it doesn't put that decision on his brother's plate. Basically what we've got here, I think, I forget who tweeted it last night, but someone made a really good point. You've got Berhalter trying to play a system that requires a lot of cohesion, a lot of chemistry, and a lot of work together. It's just not realistic for any national team, United States, Argentina, Brazil, England, whatever, to be able to do that, because players don't spend enough time together. So you've got, I don't know what the hell the tactics were last night, but you've got to abandon this philosophy of trying to be a team that builds out of the back. It takes too much chemistry and cohesion to do that. And if the manager is unwilling to abandon that, then you've got to change the manager. So for me, to use a phrase that we heard out of Mexico 5 years ago, I think it's time for Berhalter to consider putting his pants on and resigning. Don't put your brother in the position where he's going to have to save your job. Because, again, this ain't it. He has 3 road wins in non-friendlies since taking over as manager of this national team at Puerto Rico, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I think Cuba, right?
Those aren't even Berhalter's. No, he doesn't. He's got nothing.
Okay, well, then there you go.
Berhalter's got zip on the road. The last time this team won a competitive game on the road was Klinsmann in September of 2016 against St. Vincent and the Grenadines in a competitive match on the road. That's it. They didn't win anything in the last hex, and they haven't played a competitive match since then because you missed out on a World Cup.
This is the worst U.S. men's national team we've had since the late 1990s. This is the worst it's been since the late 1990s. And what's troubling to me about that is I think we've got better players, better talent of players, better talent in the player pool than we had in, say, 1997 to 1999. Major League Soccer is 10 million miles better now than it was from 1997 to 1999. So what's the problem? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? You know, and the players need to be held accountable too. I'm not saying that they don't. There are a lot of guys out there who don't seem to have much passion for playing for the shirt right now. Yeah. But, you know, who's in charge? Who's in charge of selecting the players? Who's in charge of selecting the lineups? Who's in charge of implementing a tactical plan, a formation? Who's in charge of motivating these guys? I'll tell you, nothing more motivating to me than making your non-playing subs run wind sprints at 11 o'clock at a cold night in D.C. on a Friday night. Because, you know, they aren't conditioned by their own clubs or anything like that. I mean, I'm sure all those guys just came into camp horrifically out of shape because they had just played a 34-game MLS season. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. So, yeah, the players are accountable to that, but someone's in charge. And I've seen enough. I don't know what the argument would be right now to not making a change. I don't think you can make the argument that we haven't seen enough yet. I don't think you can make the argument that, well, you can't overreact to what happened against Canada because they made the final of the Gold Cup, and that was a good achievement and whatever. Yeah, I mean, it was good they went to the Gold Cup. Guess what? They aren't going to be in the next Gold Cup. By the way, will the U.S. host the next Gold Cup if they aren't in it? Because that's what they're looking at right now.
They'll be in the next Gold Cup. They'd have to lose to Cuba by a lot to not be in the next Gold Cup. They'll be in the next Gold Cup. What's scary is that I think we all reacted to the 2018 qualifying debacle as, okay, it's a blip. You had crazy things happen. Yes, there are some things, and this is everybody gets so riled up right now that they're not actually getting into the details. Like Bruce Arena said in his article with Sam Stejskal over at The Athletic, yeah, they hit a post. These things happen. They did. I mean, you had a phantom goal keep you out of the World Cup. That's an absolute fact. Roman Torres didn't score for Panama. It's a fact. But you look at all that and you're like, okay, you're going to be okay. You're going to fix it. You have more talent than everybody outside of Mexico and CONCACAF. You should be fine. Even if you fall to third in CONCACAF, you're going to qualify for 2022. There's no worries there. Well, yeah, there's worries. Mm-hmm. Who can you look at in CONCACAF right now that will be in the Hex and say the U.S. will go to their place and get 3 points?
I don't
think there's anybody.
No one. It's not Costa Rica. It's not Panama. It's certainly not Mexico. It's not Canada, as we saw last night. Canada might not even be in the Hex. I mean, I hope for their sake they are. This is the best they've been
This
ever.
gives them a great shot to actually get there with this win.
Yeah. And you know, frankly, this is, you know, we talk about this being the worst U.S. men's national team since the late 90s. It's probably the best Canadian men's national team ever. But I don't trust them to go up to Toronto or Vancouver or wherever, get 3 points. I don't count on them going down to Jamaica and getting 3. I don't count on them going down to Honduras and getting 3. I don't trust them. I don't trust them right now.
And don't think for a second that these other teams in the Hex, their national clubs, aren't looking at the result that happened last night at BMO, sitting there saying, okay, all right, there's the U.S. We got a piece of that. We'll take that on.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't think it's I'll push back on that slightly. I don't think we're there yet. I mean, I don't think we're talking about USA being 7th or 8th right now among.
No, but I think that the fear factor is gone when it comes to facing the USMNT.
In terms of finishing 5th or 6th in the Hex, because they're going to be in the Hex. Like the ranking, you're not falling out of the top 6 in CONCACAF. You're going to go to the Hex. Right now, before yesterday, it's Mexico, U.S., Costa Rica, Jamaica. Honduras is pretty safe. El Salvador's in the final spot. Canada was 3 spots behind them in the FIFA rankings, not by many points. That was a competitive win in competition last night for them that might jump them already. And they've got more time to do it. It's June of 2020 is when the ranking closes. Top 6 play in the Hex. If it's Mexico, U.S., Costa Rica, Jamaica, Honduras, Canada, or El Salvador, and let's say Canada because I think they're going to get it, is it a guarantee that the U.S. finishes 3rd top 3 out of those countries? No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think if you're at that point, then you've got to blow this up.
I agree.
Because there is still time. There's still time to fix it. You know, you don't blow this up in autumn of 2021 when you're, sitting 5th in the Hex and you're fighting for your qualification lives, kind of like when they got rid of Klinsmann. It might have been too late by the time they pulled the trigger on that. It's not too late now. Again, has Greg Berhalter shown any of us anything that proves that he's up for this, that he's not in over his head? I don't think so. I really, really don't think so. And again, I can't speak for the players, so I don't know if this is a sentiment that's shared by those who are playing, who again need to be held accountable as well.
Yep.
But this ain't it. This is not it. This is not it. And look, I know some people, especially here in Atlanta, are making this a referendum on why they didn't hire Tata or interview him, and those are valid questions. But I'm so far beyond that right now. You've got to identify someone who's going to come in, simplify things, look at this assemblage of talent, and figure out a way to make it work. Because there is talent on this team
at the international level. I mean, that's the thing to me is the national team game is a completely different animal than the club game. And there are some who can go back and forth. There are some who find that they're better suited for one or the other. Usually the ones who go back and forth are managers like Bruce Arena, like Tata Martino, who have decades and decades of experience. And they know, okay, I've got this group for a week. What am I going to do to get the most out of this week? What do I have to say to Christian Pulisic, who's frustrated about his club situation, but is the player that is my best one that can change a game for me? What do I have to say to manage him? What do I have to do to get his confidence up? Because I need him to perform. What do I have to do to talk to Weston McKennie to get more consistency out of him, to get the form that he shows with Schalke? What do I have to do that? How can I make this game plan comfortable? How can I make this game plan engaging for these players to want to play in it and want to fight for the shirt? The flip side, and you've mentioned it, and I think you're dead on, we haven't talked about it enough, the players have to be accountable as well, because you can have any manager in any situation, club or country, and the tactics are wrong, and you go in there and you hear what the tactics are, or you get 10, 15 minutes into a game and you're like, crap. Everything we worked on is wrong, and we are in a world of hurt right now. What are we going to do? We're going to fight, and we're going to do what it takes to get the result. Didn't see that last night at all.
No. Nor did you see that in Soldier Field in July, in my opinion. Nor had you seen it in really any – well, you certainly didn't see it in Cincinnati in June when they got embarrassed by Venezuela. You don't see this team react in any positive way whatsoever to adversity. I want to throw a caveat.
Since the 2014 World Cup, and you were put behind the 8 ball because of bad tactics by Jurgen Klinsmann going into that tournament, and you still had fight until you got to a point, probably Gold Cup 2015, where I think the rah-rah, everything that was being said but actually wasn't being implemented, fell apart. And it's been a rot for a while now.
Yeah, and I think there's an important caveat to what you're saying about the next manager needing to have a large amount of international experience. Playing in World Cups should not count.
No,
managing in World Cups does. But you know what it's going to be, Jason. It's let's call Brad Friedel, or
no.
I am not joking. Nah. I think there's this mentality that it's got to be an American-born manager who's played for the U.S. men's national team, who has some managerial experience, because that's literally what they just did. And if you've got the same people making the decision, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I wouldn't be shocked. I'm serious. I would not be shocked if Brad Friedel were called.
Nah,
I wouldn't be shocked.
I think the difference is Friedel's New England Revolution time was so bad. We do have to remember, and I think it's been tweaked both ways. Greg Berhalter earned respect in Columbus for what he did. He earned respect for his tactics. Tata Martino consistently said he was impressed with the way his teams played, impressed with the way they were prepared. He didn't win an MLS Cup, but he had success in Columbus, not ultimate success, at a small market team. Brad Friedel drove the New England Revolution off a cliff. And I don't think he's going to be the guy, but I know what you're saying. And you're going to be looking at people who potentially don't have the proper experience. I think the one who has a different type of experience that you didn't consider last time around that you should is Tab Ramos. Because Tab Ramos has done this at the U20 level, and yes, it's the U20 level, but he has had teams come in. He's had success. He's gotten to quarterfinals. He's qualified for 4 straight tournaments, and he's had groups come in, and he's had to work with the players that he brings in and get the best out of that group. That would be the biggest wild card that I would look at. Outside of that, you need somebody who can come in and fix this thing straight away.
Yeah, and if it's a big boy, I mean, I'm trying to even think of
Jose Mourinho.
Okay, let's take him for example. You're going to have to, find the Brinks truck that spilled all those money bags all over 285 and drive it up to his driveway. Because it's going to take a ton of money, and an unbreakable guaranteed contract to be able to get a guy like that. And here again is where I think we're going to see a test of U.S. Soccer's financial commitment to this, because that might be what it takes right now. Is someone like I don't know if that's realistic or not, Jose Mourinho, but
that kind of an idea.
It's going to have to be that. Yeah, I think so. It's going to have to be that kind of guy.
Or it's Tab.
Yes. But and for people who would be underwhelmed by Tab, I would just say, look, it's something different. What you're trying to do right now isn't working. Try something else.
Tab had success with so many of these guys at the U20. That's why I think Tab's a different situation.
But I'm just telling you, I mean, you look at who they hired to manage the U23s. You look at who they hired to manage the senior national team. I'm not confident they're going to get this right.
No, I'm not either. I have no belief in I have no confidence in anything right now with that for sure.
No confidence at all. Getting into the other issue that's fired you up this morning, Mike, I know it wasn't necessarily unexpected, but what was it like to hear Darren say those words that he said yesterday?
It confirmed everything that I thought happened. When the news release from the Federation came out, I guess Saturday, saying that he got hurt in post-match training, you instantly think of what the heck were they doing to him after a match where he had to sit cold for 90 minutes. And it sounds like, based on everything Darren said, that was not a typical warm down that you do see after Atlanta United matches. You see a lot of MLS teams do it, where the non-playing substitutes and the guys who didn't dress out, they'll jog around a little bit. They'll do a few shuttle runs, and that's it. It sounds like this was a pretty intense training. Why? Why?
Yeah.
What's the point? You've only got these guys for 10 days. What is the point? This guy played the 6th most minutes of anyone in MLS this year. He played all 34 matches. He obviously was getting loose at some point during the game Friday night in case he had to come in. What's the point of putting him through that? And unfortunately, Miles Robinson's 22, 23 years old. He's not going to say no. He's not going to refuse that. He's going to be a team player. He's going to do as he's told, even though he knows it's probably not a good idea. And here's the result. Now, is it a little bit of bad luck? Yes. I mean, that could happen during a Tuesday training session up at Marietta. There is a little bit of bad luck in play with that as well. Mark Anthony Kaye is another testament to that, but at least Mark Anthony Kaye hadn't happened to him in a game. It's enormously frustrating. It's inexcusable, and it's a devastating injury. And if Atlanta United gets knocked out with Miles Robinson not playing, it's going to take me a very, very long time to understand and forgive the physio staff with the senior national team for what they did Friday night, because I don't understand it. It's pointless. If you're going to be together now, here's the caveat. If you're going to be better together for a month or a month and a half, you're going into a tournament, you're going overseas to the World Cup, or, you're going to play in a Copa America or something like, I get it then, because you're in that team for weeks. Okay. They've got you. You're going back to Atlanta otherwise on Wednesday. What is the point of going through a hard training on a Friday night when you did not play? I don't get it. I don't understand what the rationale is for that, unless that's something that the index card and the coach's handbook tells them they have to do after a match. I don't understand it.
It doesn't. Yeah. That's the point I want to make, and I really hoped that the situation wasn't what I feared it was, and I think Darren made it clear yesterday on 92.9 The Game with Dukes and Bell, and that audio's up on the 92.9 The Game website as well. I think he made it clear what I was afraid of was that this was not just a jog to cool down or whatever after a match. This was more than that, and this is not something that happens normally. And I do think for all the people, and mostly it's other MLS fans who are not Atlanta United fans who want to yell about anything that has to do with Atlanta, who have said, well, it could happen anywhere. Yeah, it could. It obviously, duh. But it didn't have to happen here, because it didn't happen in a match. It didn't happen in a normal training session. It happened in a situation that doesn't happen. You don't do what they were doing after the match for a player who was a replacement call-up. He wasn't going to be with you. He was going to go to the U23s. You had an injury. You bring him in. Was he going to play last night? I don't think so. I think if he was going to play, it would have been against Cuba. So you're not going to play him. Training sessions don't matter that much for the national team at that point, especially after a game, because it's not a full training session. You're not working on building out of the back. You're not working on anything. You're just working these guys out. It means nothing because he's not your player. He's not your player, and you weren't going to use him, and now you've gotten him injured on your watch. Like, that's one of the most egregious things that has happened in the last week. Beyond the result last night.
I agree. And I want to make that very clear, because, look, stuff happens in a game. You get out-coached, you get outclassed, you get outplayed. That happens
injuries happen in a game, too, and there's nothing you can do about it.
But look, those things do happen in matches. Berhalter was outclassed last night. That happens. It's happened a lot, which is why I think they need to make a change. But you understand it, because it's sports. There are two teams playing out there, not one. What happened on Friday night is way more egregious than what happened last night. And if you're making a case to sack Greg Berhalter, I'm starting there. Because you have basically submarined an MLS team's chances in this playoff unless Miles can get back healthy at some point. And it sounds like it's almost certain he's not going to play on Saturday. And I'm not trying to suggest that Atlanta United can't win without him. They can. But you have made it infinitely more difficult now. Infinitely more difficult. There's no excuse for that. And I am to assume that there was probably a discussion between the club and the federation about, okay, you're calling up Miles on an emergency basis. Hey, we're in a playoff, so let's come to an understanding about how things are going to go. And I don't know if that – well, I don't know if the discussion occurred, but I'm assuming it did. And if it did, was it disregarded? If I'm Darren and Carlos, I'm furious. And I think Darren indicated as such yesterday when he was on the radio. It's so needless. It's so unnecessary. If Miles is playing against Cuba and someone goes studs up into his knee and shreds his knee up, well, you know what? That sucks. But it came in the course of a competitive game.
Different conversation altogether.
And you do assume risk when you play in a game. There was no need. And by the way, how do you feel if you're Nick Lima or Sebastian Lletget or some of these other outfield subs that didn't get in last night? And now, hey, guys, I know you're all going back to your clubs, but we're going to make you run wind sprints here. I'm going to be like, what's the point? What is the point? we're not going to be with you again for weeks. What is the point? Why are you making us do that?
I hope that didn't happen last night. And if it did, it's even more unforgivable because your time is done when that final whistle blows. Here's what I want to ask people. Trent Alexander-Arnold, outstanding outside back for Liverpool, called into England's national squad, didn't play against Czech Republic in the first match, unused substitute. Didn't play against Bulgaria in the second game on Monday. Didn't play. Was called in for both games. If Trent Alexander-Arnold was asked or pushed or whatever or assigned to do this type of work after that first game against the Czech Republic and then came up injured and missed the match with Manchester United on the weekend and then missed the match in midweek in the Champions League, what would the reaction be?
Jurgen Klopp would be crazy.
Yeah, they would burn Europe. I mean,
that's why Gareth Southgate didn't do it, because he's not a dummy. He's not going to put himself in that position. That's what's mind-blowing about this, is you've done this in a completely unnecessary thing. Mark Anthony Kaye, it's awful that he pulled his hamstring, but it was in the match.
Right.
You can't do anything about that. It's a competitive match. You're going to get called up for it. You want to play for your country, all those things. You can control how you train the team. You can control how you manage the fitness of the players. Miles Robinson did not need extra fitness work after the match Friday night when you're not going to play him in the 2 games. He's there to make up the numbers because he was an injury replacement. And now you have affected his club going forward. What kind of relationship does that create in friendly situations when the club can say, no, we don't want our player to come play here?
You're never going to let him do it.
No.
Why would you? Because you can't trust him with your players.
No.
Yeah.
By the way, I found it interesting that one of our friends in New York, who shall remain nameless, was trying to compare the Miles Robinson injury to what happened to Mark Anthony Kaye last night.
No, they're totally different. Anybody who said that, you know exactly what word that would get used, and we've used it before. I'm saying it because that's ridiculous. Because,
I don't want you to have to go through what I went through. As someone who lived that in August, don't do it. It's not worth it.
That's a really awful take, because that's trying to compare 2 different things that have nothing to do with one another. Right. Nothing. And people should know better than that.
Yeah. And I want to be clear again. I'm not in no way am I saying Atlanta United is not going to win on Saturday or win the MLS Cup because Miles Robinson is out. I'm not saying that at all. And I know later today on Stoppage Time on the 92.9 The Game Facebook page, and certainly as we go through the rest of the week here on SDH, we're going to get into what the plan will be in terms of selection and tactics to try to play through this. Atlanta United absolutely can still win the MLS Cup without Miles Robinson, but this is a major, major, major blow. To me, this is like taking... Well, honestly, in a real-life situation, I think it's similar to the impact of losing Keanu O'Neal and the Falcons. I mean, look at what's happened to them since he got hurt. I mean, he is your organizer. He's your communicator. He's your last line of defense, and he's so completely solid. And when you take him off the field, you see what happens. It's a scramble, and it leads to some scary situations. It feels very similar to me here. This would feel very similar to losing Paul Millsap off that Hawks team that lost or that won 60 games back in 2015, where he's not necessarily your leading scorer. He doesn't do flashy things, but on the defensive end of the floor, he's so darn solid that without him, you notice a major, major drop off, and it changes the role of everyone else. So, look, I think Atlanta United can get through this, but it just got a ton harder. It just got a lot harder. And, again, if it would have happened to Miles in a game, I would be sad about it, but I would understand that, hey, these things happen. I'm not sad about this. I'm angry. I'm really, really angry. And I had a feeling when I saw the news release on Saturday that this is exactly what happened, because there was a lot of ambiguity in that news release. But enough information there where I thought to myself, boy, I bet they made him do a hard training after the game. And when we didn't hear anything more on Sunday and we didn't hear anything more on Monday, I started to get really, really nervous. And then when I heard Parkhurst's interview on 92.9 Tuesday morning, I got really nervous because it sounded very ominous. And then when I got a chance to talk to Darren yesterday, and when Darren went on the radio, it confirmed everything I feared. And that just, there's a difference between being sad and angry. Angry is when it's avoidable. This was avoidable. I'm angry. And this is one of the myriad of reasons why Greg Berhalter is in way, way over his head as the manager of the senior national team. And they need to be taking people's jobs over this, because it's absolutely unforgivable is a strong word, but it feels unforgivable to me.
Inexcusable.
Inexcusable is a better word. Thank you, John. I should be a better Christian. I can forgive everyone, I guess, but I can't excuse it.
It's an issue when you are having players get injured on your watch outside of matches. It just is.
Right.
And there's really no way to explain it. There's no justification for it.
Well, and Jason, especially when you're the United States of America, when you have unlimited resources and the best technology and you would think the best physio staff and the best sports science people and sports medicine people, it's not like you're going to an underdeveloped nation whose FA is struggling financially and they don't have the same resources. We're the United States. We should not be having these incidents occur.
Sadly,
Go ahead.
You guys have seen it with the high school and college sports across the board. It feels like so often that when a manager's in over their head, what do you fall back on? Fitness. What do you fall back on to try to show that you're in charge and you know what you're doing? You have people run, and that is what this felt like. And it's just, no, that's not the national team's job, is to improve a player's fitness in a week. You can't do it.
Yeah. Well,
it's you're trying to look the part without doing the part and knowing what you're doing. It's like, I'm going to look like a coach. Therefore, folks, you're going to run. Because that's what coaches do. They stare at players running.
Listen, here's the thing, and I've said a lot of strong things, and I stand by everything I said. But here's the big thing: I feel bad for Miles because ultimately this isn't about me being righteously indignant on Soccer Down here. It's not about trying to get Greg Berhalter, thrown out of his job or anything like that. Here's a young man who should be Defender of the Year in MLS, who's been Atlanta United's best player, who has been absolutely the most reliable, rock-solid player on this team this year, who's done everything right, who has not fallen into the trap of being, a superstar in terms of mentality or not a team player. He is the epitome of a team player, and he has to pay the price because of someone else's incompetence. It just drives me nuts, and I feel so awful for him. Because here was his first opportunity to play in a playoff game. He didn't play in the playoffs last year, if I'm not mistaken, right? So
he
here was
played
his
in the
first
NYC game.
Which one?
The second one. Remember
when
I think Larinowitz was suspended or
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Okay. Well, but I mean, here again was an opportunity for him to kind of, in the first time in his career, be a feature role in a playoff game, and it's not going to happen now. And it's just, I feel awful for him. It's terrible. And I hope that the necessary apologies have been made and that something like this never happens again. If something like this happens again to, you name it, like if they do this to Pulisic one day, or if they do this to Jordan Morris or, Roldan or Nick Lima or if this happens to Brandon Aronson down the road or Paul Arriola, I'll be really, really upset. I hope, because of this incident, that it doesn't occur to someone else down the road. And it's sad that Miles had to be the guy who suffers here, but hopefully this is something that they've learned for and it doesn't happen again.
Totally agree. It's a mess when it comes to the U.S. men's national team right now, and it doesn't look like it's
positive.
Getting better.
You every time they have a fixture coming up, you just dread it, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You just dread it. Oh, gotta watch these guys again? You dread it. And that's not going to change unless you make a change at the top, I don't think.
I don't either. I'm past it at this point because it's just consistently gotten worse. Friday, we will talk a lot about Atlanta, New England. Today, we're going to talk probably a lot about both, but I think the whiteboard will get a workout this afternoon on a stoppage time.
And honestly, like I really look forward to 2:00 today on the 92.9 The Game Facebook page, because you and I were texting yesterday. There really are a couple different ways that Frank DeBoer can approach this, and I think it's fascinating. I think it's really, really fascinating. So I hope everyone will join us at 2 p.m. because you're right. We're going to spend a lot of time on that whiteboard.
Yeah. We'll try to figure some possibilities out for Saturday. But until then, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Thanks for helping me get all this off my chest.
That's what we're here for. It's a therapy session.
That's what it's been today. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, guys.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, October 16th. We're going to get into the Overreaction Wednesday timeline on Twitter. So if you've got something to say, go ahead and chime in with us at Soccer Down here. I wanted to read a piece from Grant Wall's article over at Sports Illustrated. Some really good points from Grant in discussing all of this and some information that is important here. So I agree with his first statement. The problems aren't just with Berhalter and his team. The U.S. Soccer Federation created this situation. Instead of taking the one silver lining of the World Cup qualifying failure, the ability to use a year that most other nations didn't have and start rebuilding, U.S. Soccer wasted a year and didn't hire Berhalter until December of 2018, when he would have taken the job in December of 2017. If Berhalter was going to install a complex new system, the year to do it would have been 18, not 19. I think the idea at first was to install that complex new system. I think he's even gotten away from that. I don't know what he's trying to do at this point. So I would even put that to the side. There were issues, and we've talked about it before, that made it difficult to hire him in December of 2017. But you could have hired him right after the presidential election if that was your decision. And he could have left the Columbus Crew at the end of 2017 and said that I'm waiting on next opportunities, blah, 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 and not started the 2018 season there. Like it could have worked out. It was tricky because of the politics of it, because of Sunil Gulati stepping down, because of a presidential election that was contentious. There were things that made it difficult. And then, yes, Carlos Cordero had to focus on winning the World Cup bid. Because, sadly, winning the World Cup bid might be the only way we play in a World Cup again. So maybe that was the priority.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is the part that is the most maddening about it. 100%. Grant Wall talked about the process to hire Berhalter. And he says the process to hire Berhalter wasn't even a real process. General Manager Ernie Stewart interviewed just 2 candidates, Greg Berhalter and Oscar Pareja. What kind of job search in any field involves interviewing just 2 candidates? Good question. Stewart didn't interview Jesse Marsh. He didn't interview Tata Martino, who was interested but disqualified for the ludicrous reason of not speaking good enough English. He didn't interview former Spain coach Julen Lopetegui, who literally contacted U.S. Soccer expressing his interest. He didn't interview Bob Bradley or Tab Ramos, the coach who has gotten the U.S. team to the quarterfinals of the last 3 U20 World Cups. He interviewed 2. Pareja would have to be under consideration for the next gig, and if you compare their CVs at that time, it's a little more of a toss-up, but Oscar Pareja had built the very successful academy at FC Dallas. Oscar Pareja had won a supporter shield with FC Dallas. Oscar Pareja had won a U.S. Open Cup with FC Dallas. He had trophies. He had more experience in bringing through and developing young players. He didn't get the job. Greg Berhalter did, who had not won a trophy with the Columbus Crew, had not been involved in the development academy in the way that Pareja was, had not brought through young players in a big way because the Columbus Crew don't have a strong academy and didn't have a USL team. So Will Trapp was a success story. Yeah, he was. He absolutely was. Will Trapp is a very good central midfielder in Major League Soccer. I don't think he's an international level central midfielder. I think he's shown that. He hasn't gotten past that hurdle. So even of the 2 you interviewed, there's reasons why you should have hired the other guy. So that's where you're at. Welcome to U.S. Soccer at the moment. It ain't a pretty place.
No. A lot of folks have chimed in, and it started after the match was over last night. And we've gone over what a lot of folks have brought in this morning. Vine City FC, at least we don't have to ask whether it's the players or development or coaching. It's all the above. We need a protest in Orlando for the next match. Everyone wear black, ? Better ideas, ? Hashtag cancel the Berhalters.
I don't hate the idea at all. I think it's something that, yes, the apathy around the program is palpable. The lack of big crowds is obvious, but that's not going to change it. Make a statement. If you're going to the match in Orlando, make a statement, because this should not be what you're wanting to spend your money and time and energy and passion on. That's what's frustrating about it, is there's just not a lot to hold on to right now. When the team was a weaker team, you knew they were going to fight for you, and you knew that they could pull some upsets. And right now, I don't know if they're in their own heads about trying to do what they're being told to do by the technical staff. I don't know if they're just not motivated by the technical staff. I don't know if they're just players who are weak mentally and struggle with the international level. I don't know. But something is not right, and it needs to change.
It's a lot of somethings.
There's a lot of things that are possibly it. I don't know if it's all of those. I have no idea. And that's the other thing about all this is we can go through 5, 10, 15, 20 different things that could be affecting it, and not all of them are actually affecting it. You know, it's not always all of the above. No, it's not. That's a cop-out. But are there a variety of things that have affected where the United States men's national team is where it is right now? Yes. Is it a fire the manager, hire another manager, and everything is magically okay? No. Is it better? It should be. It can be.
Yeah.
Are there other things that can make it better? Yes. But are they longer-term things? I think so. You got to qualify for 2022. And right now that's in doubt. And when that's in doubt, you got to look at this seriously. That's the reality of the situation. How many managers do countries who are at risk of not qualifying for a World Cup go through in a cycle? Because qualifying for the World Cup is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. You go through 4 managers in a cycle. You go through 5 managers in a cycle. You do what Mexico did to get to 2014, and you're firing a guy, he gets 2 games. You screwed up here. Bye. Fire him. Get another one in here. Let's do something different. You didn't do it. Fire him. And you find whatever it takes to get there. That's where the U.S. is. It's not about philosophy and playing style and these things right now. You want to do those too, but the national team's not necessarily the place to do that. You got to qualify. You got to win stuff. You got to get out of your group in the CONCACAF Nations League that has Canada and Cuba in it. You've got to do something. And if you can't do that, you're never going to implement the philosophy and style of play.
Daniel Price, a lot of blame on Berhalter last night, especially after his post-match comments. It's a coaching problem and a problem with the Fed itself. Burn it all to the ground because this ain't working. It's a mess everywhere.
The Fed's got to be better. The leadership's got to be better. The coaching has to be better. The basics of what was said after the match were just there. If you're not getting the effort out of your players, you got to look in the mirror as to why you're not. When the intensity is not where it should be and you're getting outworked by the opponent in the first half, you have halftime to try to do something different. Nothing changed. You didn't get anything different in the second half. That's a problem. It's a big problem. So, all of it's a mess at the moment.
J.C. Hillis says it's disappointing we aren't turning to veteran USMNT players like Johnson and Chandler, who've both proven themselves at very high levels. They should be the veteran presence rather than Bradley.
Everybody wants to point at Michael Bradley, and he's about the 10th thing that's wrong here. But if that's what, again, if your agenda is Michael Bradley sucks and Michael Bradley shouldn't be anywhere near a national team, that's what you're going to turn to. Timmy Chandler has never really done anything for the national team. Yes, he's got a CV. That's great. He's also a player that his commitment to the national team has been questioned. So is that what you want? I don't know the issue with Fabian Johnson, but his commitment to the national team's been questioned. Jurgen Klinsmann questioned it. So is that what you want? Neither one of them play the position that Michael Bradley does either, so it doesn't fix it. You don't have another player that you're not calling in that should be playing ahead of Michael Bradley in that position. Tyler Adams is the one. And Greg Berhalter said this time around now that he will look at Tyler Adams as a number 6, which he didn't say earlier in his cycle because, again, Greg Berhalter really botched the PR side of this at the beginning with some of the things he said. Now he's having to walk it back or twist it around or drop it and break it and try to get duct tape to fix it. Until Tyler Adams is available, Michael Bradley should be starting over Will Trapp. Michael Bradley should be starting over Christian Roldan as a number 6. Those are facts, people. I mean, you can not like Michael Bradley. That's fine. Doesn't mean his whole career is bad, which some people want to try to say, which is an insane thing to say. There's nobody else at the moment. Now, again, if I'm worried about Michael Bradley's mobility, if I'm worried about different things, I'm not going to play him by himself against a team that is playing 4 in the midfield and is pressing everything. Because go back and try to take the blinders off and look at how many times the ball was played into Michael Bradley because the back line said, oh, crap, somebody save us. Here, Mike, you do it. And he had 2 swarming him before the ball gets to him. Go back and look at how many times that happened. Go back and look at how many times he didn't have options. Go back and look at how many times he did play a ball out of trouble and then it was mishandled or then it was given away. Take the blinders off and go back and look at that. Michael Bradley is number 10 on the list of things that went wrong last night. His giveaway was bad. It was made worse by an awful clearance from Tim Ream and an even worse marking job by DeAndre Yedlin. I think John's stunned at this point.
Oh no! Oh, okay. I was still waiting for the end of the sentence.
No, that was it.
Okay.
It was a horrible marking job.
Okay.
There wasn't anything else to say.
Okay. Shiva, do you really think the talent's there in the squad to take us through? That's what I'm questioning. Is there
Yes.
talent for what the coach
Yes.
wants to do?
That's different, and I tweeted that back to you. Yes. Go and compare the talent between those 6 teams we talked about that'll probably be in the Hex. Look at the 2 teams last night. The U.S. is more talented than Canada. Don't tell me they're not. Don't try to argue with me that they're not. The CVs don't match up. The level of experience doesn't match up. That back line for Canada is not a strong back line.
No, by comparison, no.
Okay, if it's not Canada, if they don't get to the Hex, it's El Salvador. Don't try to argue with me that El Salvador's squad is better than the U.S. No. Honduras, Jamaica. Jamaica has USL championship players playing key roles. No. Mexico, different conversation. They're a better team. They've got better talent. The U.S. has more talent than anybody else in CONCACAF. And I'm not gonna fall for the thing that everybody wants to jump to with, oh, U.S. soccer sucks. Oh, we suck. Our players are bad. How could you ever think that they could win anything? Because they're better than the rest of the teams in CONCACAF bar one. Flat out. And they're not getting the performances that they used to. They're not getting the tactics that they need. And they're losing games that they should be winning or getting results in. You should have come out of that match last night with a draw, bare minimum. Because it's a competition and you have to manage it as such. It looked like you were managing it like it was a friendly, and it was, well, we're going to focus on what we're going to focus on, and we don't care what happens. Well, you can't do that in a competition. And when you do, that happens, and you get embarrassed. So, yes, we have more talent than anybody in CONCACAF bar one. That should get you to the World Cup.
Nathan Pugh, 02, 06, 10, and 14 made us all think that the USMNT was a sleeping behemoth that was becoming stronger and more powerful. Trinidad and Tobago exposed the USMNT as, in actuality, a naked, tiny, entitled, and unimaginative Oz. The cycle will come around again. Fall international footy stinks.
I disagree with part of it because you lost to Trinidad and Tobago for a lot of things. You didn't lose to them because you're not good enough. You lost to Canada for a lot of things. You didn't lose to them because you're not good enough. 2014, you were exposed as not being good enough. That 2014 team, and I've seen lots of pining for Jurgen Klinsmann. Lots and lots of pining for Jurgen Klinsmann. You want facts about 2014 and what happened? Facts are you gave up nearly 100 shots in 4 games. Not kidding. I think it was 94. Nearly 100 shots conceded in 4 matches. 2014 wasn't glorious, y'all. 2014, you've got a goalkeeper who tied a record for saves in a game because you gave up 39 shots. Yes, it went to extra time. You didn't play for 3 weeks. You gave up 39 shots. Like, seriously, 39 shots. Just let that soak in for a minute. 2014 was a bad World Cup, and you shouldn't have continued with that leadership at that time. You did. It got worse, and you have went down and down and down. 2010, it was about what it was. It was about what it should be. You got to the round of 16. You should be getting to the round of 16. Yes, you should be getting to the round of 16. Don't let people tell you shouldn't, because that's the easy cop-out. I disagree with this. That's the easy thing is, we suck. We suck. We can't win anything. We can't get to a World Cup. We can't get out of a group. No. Look at the teams that do. The U.S. should be getting to the round of 16, period. They should. That's the minimum goal. It's not a shock to get there. 2010 is not a shock. It was about what they were, to be perfectly real. Now, could they have won the Ghana match? Yeah, they could have. They could have went to a quarterfinal. They could have went to a quarterfinal with Uruguay. Yeah. Definitely could have done that. They could have been better in the group stage. Yes. But they were about what they were. 2006, you got a awful draw. And I think Bruce Arena got scared and conservative for the first time in his managerial career. And you lost to the Czech Republic. You drew the eventual champions in a dogfight with Italy. You want to talk about effort? Where's that team? Where's that 2006 team that fought the team that eventually won the tournament? Blood streaming down Brian McBride's face. You're finished with 9 players, and you get a 1-1 draw. Where's that team now? Where's that gone? Because that was a bad tournament, and you still had that. You still had that performance. 2002 is the best that you've ever had. 2002, that was a team that played its best match in program history in the quarterfinal loss to Germany. And a team that if you get past that Germany game, and yeah, there's a handball on the line, and yeah, it wasn't called, and that could have been a red card and a penalty, and things could have been very different. Yep, because if you do, you've got the potential to get to a World Cup final. That was 2002. This team is a round of 16 kind of team that if things fall the right way, can be more. It is not unreasonable to expect them to make the round of 16. It's not. And don't let people tell you that it is, because then you have no expectations, and then results like that last night are okay because you don't have any expectations. Don't allow that to happen, folks. Do not. Do not allow people to tell you that U.S. soccer is bad. Don't let the inferiority complex get you. This team should be making the round of 16 in the World Cup. They should be. Doesn't mean they will. Doesn't mean it's handed to them. That is where they should be. A top 16 team in the world. That is reasonable. Every cycle doesn't mean you're there. You have some that you have less talent. Right now, I don't think you have as much top talent as you've had in the past, but I think you have a better overall pool. That only takes you so far. But no, it's not okay to say that, well, we're just not that good. Because then mediocrity, like losing in Trinidad and losing in Canada, become acceptable, and it should never be acceptable for those results to happen.
At 5Stripe17 on a hashtag Overreaction Wednesday, I feel more hopeless today than I did after TNT because we at least knew then that we would have a chance to make meaningful changes before the next hex. But I think Long looked pretty okay out there at least.
Oh, now I just want to go listen to Depeche Mode all day because that tweet is incredibly accurate and sad.
Along the lines of Michael Head, when will the program hit rock bottom? Thought we experienced that in TNT. It's embarrassing for U.S. soccer. How long does Big Brother Berhalter protect Greg? Will non-English speakers have a chance this time? Will the U.S. ever get out of this abyss?
TNT should have been rock bottom. Sadly, it's not. I don't know what it is in the cycle. Not getting to the semifinals of the CONCACAF Nations League would be it, I think. Because Canada's going to come to Orlando and park the bus and slash all the tires and go find another bus and go get a crane and go build a
They're going to go to Laredo Garage, grab as many of the buses as they can, put them in front, and turn it into one of those old scenes from the westerns of the 1950s when all the Conestoga wagons circle to try to make sure that no one gets hurt. That's what it's going to look like.
They're going to do that, and they're going to have Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David sit up top and say, hey, guys, remember us? We can kill you on the break because that's what we do. There's no guarantee that you get the result you need against Canada to get to the semifinals of the Nations League. You don't get to the semifinals of the Nations League, things got to change. Like, no. There's no justifying it. None at all.
And Didn't Paul Kennedy have in his timeline yesterday that if they lose in Orlando, it's a relegation game in the Caymans against Cuba?
Well, yeah, it's that simple. I mean, it's 3 teams. And the first place team goes to the semifinals. The second place team goes to the Gold Cup. The third place team drops down to League B. And then Cuba right now is in third place. Now, Cuba has awful goal differential, and things are you're going to have to get a result, and you're going to have to avoid losing by like 10, which, let's be real. That part, leave it to the side. You got to beat Canada. You got to beat Canada, and you've got to flip goal differential, and you've got to handle this. Right now, you've got the +1 on the Cuba series with your home games. Canada only beat Cuba 1-0 in the Caymans. You lost 2-0 to Canada. You beat Canada by 2, or even if you beat Canada by 1, you can still flip the goal differential in your game with Cuba. You should do that. But you got to beat Canada. And there's no guarantee of that happening, not the way you're playing right now, not the way things look. And that would be rock bottom at the moment. If you don't get to the semifinals of the Nations League, you got to make changes.
Bart, along those same lines, wants to know what decision made in the past 24 months gives you confidence the problem will be remedied.
Nothing. Zero. There's nothing that gives me confidence that it'll be remedied because it's gotten worse. And I didn't like where it was to begin with, and I didn't like where it was. I think, again, that there's maybe some revisionist history on Klinsmann's time, but I didn't think the program was in a better place when Klinsmann was fired than when it was when Bradley was fired. I think it was better when Bradley was fired. I think it got worse over time with Klinsmann. I think it got worse in the short period of time with Arena as the caretaker / get us to the World Cup, whatever it takes. And now I think it's gotten worse. You know? I mean, there's not much to hang your hat on right now.
Nope. Eichmann actually had a wall pass Wednesday question. Not an overreaction Wednesday question, but it might be. Which injury impacts their team the most, Kay or Miles?
That's a really tough one. I can see an argument for both. I think I'm probably a little more leaning towards K because of how it affected LAFC last year. I think they're better this year to deal with it, but still they don't have a direct replacement. Latif Blessing has grown a lot over the last year and will help with that more than he could last year. Edward Atuesta is a top player. I think you've got some options to mask it more than you had last time around. The Miles one, it just creates so much I don't want to say indecision because that's not the case. I mean, you're going to make a decision, but it creates so many possibilities. There's not a clear cut, okay, no Miles, replace here. Because you could go to 4 in the back. You could change your midfield around to help cover it. You could keep 3 in the back, but change the way it plays a little bit, change the personality of it. There's so many different possibilities that it's more unknown, the Miles one. I still want to lean towards K because I just don't think they have a direct replacement, and I think Atlanta has more options in replacing Miles, but honestly, we're just going to have to wait and see.
Reality is in the USMNT camp. Seems as if there was a sense that the players, again, expected to win, didn't take their chances seriously. I respect Herdman for taking this game seriously. Meanwhile, Berhalter blames the players for lack of intensity.
I mean, you do have to blame the players for the lack of intensity. I do think that the whole lead up to this about the Nations League not being that big of a deal is what's detrimental. I mean, we heard it coming out of the Atlanta United 2 match last Wednesday when they were replaying some interviews from earlier in the day at U.S. training ahead of the Cuba match, where I believe it was Reggie Cannon and Daniel Lovitz were speaking to Joe Tollison of SiriusXM FC and said something about how, well, they prepare for these games the same way as they prepare for any game, that type of line. And that shocked me, because that shouldn't be the case. And that's where I do go a little bit towards what Matias Almeida said to ESPN, where he talked about the mentality of American players and the coaching and the development of said American players and things like that. I think there's a mentality that in the U.S., well, if it's not the World Cup, it's not that big of a deal. Well, it's just the Gold Cup. And that's the fan base, too. I mean, that's across the board, but it's like, it's just the Gold Cup. It's not a big deal. It's not that way to Mexico. And that should be the benchmark. I mean, that's the easy one, right? Is the country that you play a lot and has had the better of you for the majority of it. You've had some cycles where you've been better than them. You have the biggest win against them in 2002, but in general, Mexico's been better. Their mentality is, we're representing the country in this match. This is a match for either it's the Gold Cup or the CONCACAF Cup to go to the Confederations Cup, or it's CONCACAF Nations League, or whatever it is. And we're going to play to our best ability, and we want to win this. I don't care if you made up the trophy yesterday and you went and you bought it at Target and you slapped a badge on it with a name with tape. They want to win the thing. I don't know if we necessarily get that same mentality, and it shows at times. Berhalter's right to question the intensity, but he also has to look in the mirror as to why his players were not ready for the challenge that Canada was going to bring them. And that was obvious because Herdman told you and it was going to do that. Piet told you, we hate you. We want to beat you. We hate you. You know it's going to be a fight, and you need to be up for that.
KFC, obviously it wasn't a fun watch, but I was able to appreciate seeing what it meant to Canada.
100%. Canada's not going anywhere, y'all. And for all the MLS hate that some who follow the national team want to give you, I think a lot of people listen to the show, obviously, Atlanta United, and there's a different conversation about MLS here than there might be in other outlets. MLS has benefited Canada in a great way. It's benefited Costa Rica in a great way. It's benefited Honduras in a great way. It's benefited Jamaica in a great way. It's benefited lots of CONCACAF in a big way. It's benefited the United States in a big way, obviously. Canada is reaping the benefits of that, and it's showing. And we went through the talent that when you compare it on paper to where many of these U.S. players are who have gone to Europe and are playing in Europe, the CVs don't match up. But Canada's able to get something out of the lesser MLS talent. Well, they got a 2-0 win, and their backline got a clean sheet. And 3 of those guys are not even regular starters. I think Larea has become that for Toronto, but didn't have 20 starts this season at right back. Kamal Miller, Derek Cornelius, rookie seasons, didn't get more than 20 starts. And they were able to get it done. So the whole thing about MLS or pedigrees or whatever is nonsense. This is big for Canada. Now they have that belief. And I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon.
Daniel Price says that Greg and Jay are corruption at the highest level. Get rid of both and all the followers.
I hate it because there's not a lot to say, well, that's not true. There's a lot of whispers. There's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of questions. And look, they could have handled everything in an above-the-board way in terms of avoiding a conflict of interest in this hire. They absolutely could have done all that. But the optics were always going to be bad, and that you had to know they were always going to be worse if Greg Berhalter did not succeed in the job. And he's not succeeding. So they still could have done everything right because, look, go to any soccer club, go to any state association, go to any soccer organization in the United States or as well in other countries, because this is not a unique thing, you're going to find conflicts of interest, like flat out. You're going to find these scenarios. It's going to happen. And when it falls apart, questions get asked. So, yeah, they could have done everything right with this, could have kept Jay Berhalter isolated from the decision-making. All that could have been the case. When it didn't work, this was what was going to come up. Because it has to. It has to. You have to ask these questions.
Jim Lepp, about your point about depth and quality depth of the USMNT side, still maintains or would maintain that the 2002 side, when it comes to talent on the top end, is better.
At the top end, yeah, I could see that. But that 2002 team will probably go down as the best team that we've seen at a World Cup from the United States. Because you had Claudio Reyna pretty much in his prime, maybe towards the back end of it. You had Landon Donovan and DeMarcus Beasley emerging. You had Brad Friedel in his prime at goal. You had Eddie Pope in his prime at center back. You had a great mix of experience and young talent and the right players at the right time and the right fit. And you had a manager in Bruce Arena who was the right guy for that team too. You know, if you go back and watch the video that U.S. Soccer put out that followed the team during the World Cup, it's a great video. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that's really good. Bruce Arena made it very simple before matches. I don't remember the exact quote, but it was essentially before they would go out, after they gave their tactical talk and all that, it was first shot, first goal, first shot, first tackle, first foul, blah, 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 blah. First everything. That's the mentality that you have to have in these moments. It's the mentality that appears to have been lost over the last 7-8 years.
And Kefsey wanted to know about the similarity of Miles's injury to Bellows, because recalling a Tony Annan quote about managing workload and possibly it being an issue about communication.
It's a good question. I mean, it's different injuries because you're talking about a hamstring versus a groin, so it's a different body part that you're getting the injury to. But yeah, anytime you have national team players, these questions come up from top clubs is, how are you using my player? What is their workload? What are they being asked to do? And it's going to always come up. And anytime something like this happens, you have to wonder what happened to cause it. And that's why this one's so frustrating, because it's not in a match. It's not in a normal training session. And no, I don't care what people are trying to say. A training session after a match is not normal. A jog, a little bit of activation or cool down or warm down or whatever you want to call it, sure, that happens all the time. It happens typically with teams who are traveling in a club situation, and after the match, the players who didn't play jog. Little bit of sprinting. Jog. Not a training session, and it's been described as a post-match training session. That's not normal. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So without the details, it's really hard to link the two. But yeah, you're talking about two players from Atlanta United who have now come back from national team duty with injuries. And you have to wonder why that is happening. It's a valid question. Just don't have the details to answer it, honestly.
Ricky Ricardo wanted to talk about the U23s and wonder if there was a shot to make the Olympics.
Yeah, they should make the Olympics. Again, it's the same thing. Like, they should have made the Olympics last time. They should have made the Olympics the time before. The talent, they should make the Olympics. Like, this team, the United States in CONCACAF, should qualify for every Youth World Cup. They should qualify for the Olympics. They should qualify for the World Cup every single time. Yes, that's the expectation. Yes, they should. Does that mean it happens every time? No, things do happen. Sometimes a draw, sometimes weird things. Sometimes you get put in a weird group. The Olympics and the youth national team World Cups, it's a smaller margin for error. Those things happen, absolutely. But should you be expected to? Yep. They should reach the Olympics. This is a very good U23 group because you're coming off the backs of very good U20 groups. You should make it. You should have made it the last two times, and you didn't. One time, it was because Caleb Porter was in over his head. His first job outside of Akron, trying to qualify for 2012. Failed. Just mismanaged the qualification process. Same thing for 2016. You just didn't handle the qualification process the right way. Now we'll see if Jason Christ can do it. He better. I mean, it's just that simple. Like, he better. It's important because you're seeing the difference now, when you have players who play in a Youth World Cup at 18 and 19 and then don't play competitive games in a Olympics, don't get to a World Cup, you see last night, and you see a team that doesn't know how to play in a tough spot. You learn that from playing in tough spots. You need to qualify for the Olympics to get competitive games at a big level. Jason Christ has got to do it. This is a talented group. It's a group with more professional experience than they've ever had. Got to get the job done.
Eichmann wants to bring in the Ukrainians to investigate corruption and nepotism in the USSF. Hashtag impeach Berhalter.
Oh, dear. I'm going to leave that one off to the side.
And Ricky Ricardo is saying, as much as I'd love to see it someday, don't know how I feel about the USMNT being invited into the Copa America anytime soon.
They should take it, and they should beg for it. They should beg CONMEBOL for it. Hands and knees, please give us these opportunities to play meaningful games. Please. Instead of where it's been, well, I don't know how we would manage that and this, and I don't know. That's why you are where you are. You gotta stop being scared, and you gotta play these games. Mexico's been willing to do it.
Get a dog.
Mexico said, oh, we'll go play in it. Oh, we're playing in the Gold Cup too? Okay. We'll take 2 squads. We'll split it up. We'll take some guys to both. We'll do whatever. Yes, we're going to do it. We want to be better. Yes, let's do it. Instead of, stop. Go play in it. If they let you, go play in it. If they don't want to invite you and they want to invite Japan and Qatar instead, go beg. Beg like you've never begged before to get to play in this tournament, because it will help you get better.
Joe Bost is mad as hell, and we're officially caught up on Twitter.
Oy, I know the feeling. It is very annoying because it feels like it hasn't changed. It feels like we're back where we were, maybe even worse. And it doesn't look very optimistic for any of it to change. And that's not okay. There's not a lot of promise here, folks. If they don't qualify for the Nations League semifinals, if they don't win this group, I don't think you can continue with the staff. I just don't. I mean, I'm already to the point where I don't know if you can continue with the staff for all of the things. The players getting injured on their watch. We're going to play this way. Well, okay, we're kind of going to play this way. Well, this guy's never going to play right back for me. Well, he's going to play right back for me. Well, this guy's not a right back, or this guy he's not a 6. Well, he is going to be a 6. Like, I don't even know what the idea is anymore. I don't. There's been no clear idea of how this team will play. There has been no consistency in it. There has been waffling and waffling and waffling. There has been an effort to explain away bad results. There's been even a bit of an arrogant attitude about building and progress. And where are you? You just lost to Canada for the first time in 34 years. You just put your qualification for the CONCACAF Nations League semifinals at risk, and you just brought in to question your ability to qualify for 2022, because you should be worried about it. 100%. You should. And it's not just because of Greg Berhalter. It's because none of the things in the rot that has been the U.S. men's national team since fairly early in Klinsmann's era, because Klinsmann struggled in qualification every time. Since fairly early in that era, and definitely after 2014, this team, for the most part, has looked uninspired, has looked lethargic, has looked confused, has looked disinterested. and they're not good enough to play that way and get results. They are good enough to get the results that we're expecting. I don't think anybody is being unfair in saying that they should win the World Cup in 2022. I don't think anybody has said that about 2018 or anything else. The expectations are not unfair, and the team has the talent to meet those expectations. They're not. And that's a problem at the top. And on down the ladder, depending on how far you want to go, there are problems. So they got to get addressed somehow. And until they do, I don't think people are going to stop talking about them. I know people are apathetic about this national team, but if you were angry and didn't want to watch this game because you're just fed up with the national team in general, go back and watch some of it. Pull up the ESPN app, go back through some of it. Watch it so you know what's going on, so you know what to ask for to be different. Don't just pick up a cause because somebody else tweeted it or whatever. Like, watch it, what bothers you about it, and talk about it. Because that's how it's going to change. I think there is a growing voice of people who are frustrated with this, and hopefully that will result in something, because it has to. Italy didn't qualify for the last World Cup. They look completely different right now, don't they? They've been outstanding in European Championships qualifying. The Netherlands didn't qualify for the last World Cup. They won the Nations League. Was it meaningless to them? Don't think so. Don't think so. So, that's where you're at. Others have moved on. The U.S. doesn't really look like they have, and last night was about as bad as it gets. So, we will see what happens. Hopefully, we will be able to push this to the background moving forward, because we have MLS playoffs starting on Saturday. And now there's a lot of big questions about Atlanta United, with New England coming to town, with Miles Robinson almost probably out for Saturday, almost probably out for a little bit of time here. And there's a lot of different possibilities that Frank de Boer will have to replace Miles Robinson. We're going to talk about that on Stoppage Time today at 2 o'clock, facebook.com/929thegame. You can watch myself, Mike Conti, Jimmy Vance. We'll break it down. We'll go through all the different possibilities on the whiteboard of what it could look like, because there's probably a realistic 4, 5, 6. And we'll go through all of them. We'll get you set for the playoffs, and we'll be back tomorrow morning to do a Thursday Thoughts edition that could be very, very interesting, John.
Yep. Last word comes from the Soccer for Good OG Joe Robbins. When the rational, thoughtful Longshoe stops being an apologist for the USMNT, you know we're in trouble.
I've not been an apologist. That one kind of hurts, Jill. I've just tried to explain it in a rational way and explain the challenges that they face. There's nothing you can really hang your hat on right now. There isn't. I mean, I understood the process of why it took a while to get Berhalter in place. The process to actually decide on Berhalter is a different conversation. I still think Bruce Arena was the right hire at the time when you brought him in for Klinsmann, because you didn't have time to fix it. Well, you can't go back to Bruce Arena now because it didn't work last time. So who is the break glass in case of emergency hire? No, there's not one. There's nobody. That's the other problem that we haven't even gotten into.
Yeah.
Last time you had Bruce, who
there isn't a Band-Aid
talk
now.
Out of the LA Galaxy job and come take this and try to fix it, and he wanted to fix it because he obviously has strong feelings for the national team program. And he screwed up too. He screwed up tactically in the Trinidad game. 100%.
Yeah.
Said that from day one. I said it that morning, like, don't leave Michael Bradley by himself. Rotate the squad. You just have to get a draw. No, and you failed.
Or not.
You can't get Bruce back because you can't turn back to that one. I don't think you're going to get Bob Bradley back. He's been there and done that, because why would he leave LAFC right now, and especially after the way you treated him, firing him after success for the most part and losing a final to Mexico in the Gold Cup, that you've lost other finals to Mexico. And you didn't fire the people who lost those. So you're not getting him. That's your last 2 managers who went to World Cups. You're not going to go back to Jurgen. That's not happening.
Laura.
You're not going to Steve Sampson. I don't know. There's not that guy anymore. There isn't. So I don't know what you do. But it is what it is. You've created this issue for 5, 6, 7 years possibly.
Yeah.
Because it didn't just start at the end of Klinsmann's run. It started in the middle of it. It got worse. You kept him around. You finally fired him after you lost your first 2 games in the Hex, which only one team ever came back from to qualify. You didn't do that. Bruce couldn't get it done. Yes, there was a hole to climb out of, but he was out of the hole. Like, he was out of the hole. Got smacked over the head like a whack-a-mole back down in the hole, and it didn't qualify because of stupid tactical decisions. And now this is where you're at. So I don't know what the way out is. I don't know how it gets fixed. There's not an easy solution. There's nothing obvious. There's not somebody standing by the wings like, okay, cool, I'll bail you out again. There's none of that. So this is what it is. And if you don't qualify for the Nations League semifinals, you got to make a change. There's just no way around it. You absolutely have to. And then you're taking a big chance because whoever comes over and takes it is going to have to fix things in a short period of time because the Hex will start next fall. And 10 games to qualify, and there's no guarantees. No guarantees that you're going to get through that based off past history. So that's where you're at. Welcome to U.S. soccer, folks. It's a fun house.
Firefly fun house at this rate.
That's what it feels like. We will see. We'll be talking about it on Stoppage Time this afternoon. We'll be talking about it tomorrow. We'll start looking ahead to the postseason as well because, man, Saturday's massive and weird now because of the Miles Robinson injury. We'll try to get through all of it starting this afternoon and then back on SDH tomorrow. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for all the comments and tweets. Thanks for putting up with ranting this morning. And thanks for listening. Mucho platiel.
Mucho platiel.